Emotionally unavailable. Hi, welcome to Emotionally Unavailable. This is truly a show about me and my journey. When I started Emotionally Unavailable, I thought I was just learning how to be more vulnerable. But somewhere along the way, vulnerability became transformation emotional, spiritual, human. Every guest I've spoken with has been a mirror, a teacher, a reflection of something I was meant to see. These conversations aren't interviews, they're energy exchanges. I'm not here as an expert, I'm here as a student of life. And together, we're learning what it really means to open our hearts, to show up honestly, and to find connection in the spaces we once hid from. The journey back to ourselves starts here. Hi guys, trying to get this done quick because Charlie's in a mood and I feel like we're about to be interrupted. I'm a little tired because I have PMS, which hormones are creating a really good time for me, and so I stayed up way too late and then I got up at a decent time because I got to go like hand knit a finger blanket. It's great. Anyway, I'm tired. So without further ado, today's guest is Faith Spencer, a certified Happy for No Reason trainer and author of the Oneness Guide for Today, a book of insight for young women. A unique and timely book for teen girls and young women navigating pressure, perfectionism, and social media stress. Her work helps young people shift from ego-driven striving to soul-deep connection by exploring the science and spirituality of oneness. Faith is here to share powerful tools for self-acceptance, inner peace, and authentic living. We had a really good time. She was very kind. I will let you know that this was my first interview back post losing Jake, and if you don't count the one I did with Ashana, but we knew what that interview was going to be about. So, yeah, this was my first interview back, and I didn't bring Jake up in this one. I have since then, but I just was so happy to have just a quote unquote normal conversation. And it actually just, not because I didn't talk about Jake that day, but just talking in general, and talking about stuff that lights me up. It just, seeing this show will be a lifeline for me. So thank you for your continued listenership. My brain is not putting words together well, but anyway, I'm just really grateful for those who come on, those who listen, and just hear my heart in all of this. So anyway, so Jake wasn't brought up in this one. And also I'm still learning how to navigate that, to talk about my children. So, cause I feel like I'm going to be one of those weird trauma dumpers who's like, how many kids do you have? Oh, well, let me just tell you about how I've lost one real quick. I don't know. It's a weird thing. No judgment to anyone for how anyone else chooses to navigate this. I also know, before I get a bunch of well-meaning messages about how it's up to me, blah, blah, blah. I already know that. I just haven't decided for myself how I want to. So anyway, I'm tired, so no filter. I'm doing okay, guys. I have a couple more, I have an episode with another friend that's coming out soon where we really talk about things again, but I think I'm going to make solo episodes and updates kind of a regular thing, but otherwise I can use introductions for that. But as it is, I am very tired. Also, Bryson is having his surgery the day that this is released. And I think I told you guys in a griefy moment of rage, he punched a refrigerator and broke his hand. So that is getting fixed. Should be minor, but it's another kink in the plan. So, okay. I'm going to shut up. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Here's me and Faith. Emotionally unavailable. Okay, well, I'm really excited to have this conversation. I looked at your profile again, and usually kind of what I do is I read it and I go, what jumps out at me? Where do I want to start? And so I don't know why, but this is where I want to start. Specifically, you work with Gen Z girls. You reference teens a few times, so I'm thinking that, younger Gen Z. But I'm really interested in knowing what calls to you for that specific age group.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have a tween daughter, so I got the inspiration to write my book when my daughter was 4, and
Okay.
I wanted her to know, and all other young women, the things that I've learned about how to navigate life. And these are things you do not learn in the school system, often from your family.
Mm-hmm.
ways to navigate life from your inner wisdom, from, what I guess your connection with the universe, your inner wisdom. You don't learn about that usually in
Right.
school, from your families. So I wanted to, it's about a legacy for my daughter or something that, I want her to know these ways to guide her life. And then, obviously teens are really struggling right now. I mean, I don't think it's quite changed yet. We're still seeing that life is hard for them. They're having, the loneliness epidemic going on even, and it's
Yeah.
crazy because they've got all this technology, but that's not making them happier, and it's not making them feel more connected, especially. And so my book provides a way to feel connected to yourself, connected to something greater, however you define that.
Yeah.
Your higher self, your inner self, or
Yes.
God, the universe, however you wanna talk about that. But there is the way that life is happening for teens with so much social media and technology, and they're kinda attached to their smartphones, like, that way of living isn't making them happy.
Right. Would you say too that almost having that false connection through the technology like compounds the loneliness because it's something that's so confusing even as a 45-year-old is loneliness when you're in a room full of people, when you're talking to someone in any capacity, whether it's technology or what, because it really does boil down to that connection you have with yourself.
Yeah, and I think that we think we're connecting in a real and satisfying way when we're
Yeah.
using technology, but it turns out that it isn't. It isn't fulfilling in the same way as face to face, real time connections where you can read body language and really feel another's response to you. It's just different and it's a lot more fulfilling. And I don't totally understand why. I recently actually lost my phone and I didn't have it for like 2 weeks.
That's
I know, which sounds like unbearable, right? But what I found was that I felt happier without it. I
Mhm.
felt more in the moment, and I felt and even, like, my husband and he's often working, like, downstairs in our house, and I'm upstairs in our house, and I'll text him a lot. We'll text each other. And I realized when I think texting is kind of the same level or type of communication as talking, like, it's just more convenient, right? And it's kind of fun, send a little message. But I found that when I had to go downstairs, I had to, like, talk to him face to face, and I felt closer to him, and I felt somehow more connected that we weren't just texting, and it made me realize, oh, texting isn't the same.
Yeah. Again, false. Just that false sense of connection. And do you think this is just a thought I just had, so I'm just really curious about how you feel about this. Do you think if teens' primary way of communicating is through technology, do you think that impedes their ability to pick up on those social cues when they are in person or even read the energy of a room?
I would imagine if that is I mean, I think that the data kinda shows that there is a deficit in those areas for them, but I don't know a whole lot about the research on that, but I think that there's a thought out there that they're
Yeah.
not as socially adept and, socially affluent, socially agile because of these devices. And something I kind of dug into as well is that there's research about taking a social media break, yeah, it's about taking a social media break. And I think it applies to a technology break in general. But of course, social media is the biggest culprit and the biggest problem that teens and the rest of us are having. And it shows that when you either limit, like there was one study at the University of Pennsylvania in 2018, and it showed that if these undergraduates just reduced their time on social media. Like, it was, I think, Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. If they limited them all to, like, 10 minutes a day, so it was 30 minutes total, they had a decrease in loneliness. There's so many studies that show that. In 2020, there was, like, a 7-day abstinence study that showed that that there was a significant increase in mental well-being and sense of connectedness when they took a 7-day abstinence from social media. And
That makes
so
sense to me though. Like just anecdotally, knowing that you can be more present and grounded in your
yes.
current reality if you're not tethered to all these other things.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. And that's what I found when I lost my phone too. It was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm like in the moment, there isn't always this little thing kinda, kinda chirping at me. And
Mhm.
it made me just more present. And then when you're more present, you're connected to other people more and
Mhm.
to your environment, to life. You just feel
Yes.
in this different flow of life. You're kind of yeah, you're more grounded. It's exactly what you just described. So, it's a conundrum because those things aren't going away. Social media,
Right.
I don't believe, is going away. So, how can teens live in a way that's more conducive to well-being? I mean,
Right.
they've gotta take the breaks. They've gotta put the social media and the technology into perspective and not be on it all the time. That's one thing that is for sure. Like, the more it shows that the more studies show the more hours you are on social media, the more likely you are to be depressed. So, and I think that teens I was reading something that, like, almost half of teens think that social media and technology are a problem for their generation or affect their well-being negatively, but only 14% think it affects them personally. Mm. There's a big
Gosh, isn't that the crux of a teenage problem? That's so cute. But, here's and I could be wrong, but the vibe I'm getting off the way you're presenting this information really isn't like parents withhold technology, but really introducing this conversation to the teen themselves for them to have an understanding of the science, the energy of it, everything, to start making more informed decisions for themselves. Because I do believe they're capable of that with guidance, obviously. But I have an 11-year-old daughter. I believe that she's capable of understanding this and wants to make decisions that are good for her, but she has to be given the information. But I think they're capable, I really do. But yeah, I think it has to be a little more than it's a problem for your generation, you know? I mean, they have to
yeah.
understand how it's affecting them personally. But my very limited experience with that generation as a whole is that they have reached this level of, I'm gonna use the word burnout, that's, like, different than any of like, I'm a baby Gen X elder millennial, so, like, I reached
Mhm.
that burnout of perfectionism in, my 40s. But I feel like because of the particular environmental stressors that this generation's had, they've reached that at a much faster rate, and so I think that they are desperate for this information. I really do, and I think that they have the capacity to hold it. I really believe that.
Yeah, I have a 12-year-old, so I'm kind of in your same boat, and I agree that when I tell my daughter about social media, about kind of here's what happens because she's not on social media yet. Well, tell them the specifics about what really happens, and then they don't want to. Oh, well, they don't want that. You don't want to feel like more depressed because you've been on social media longer, or you don't want to be constantly caught up in comparison and FOMO because you're all about social media. So I do agree that it's like tell them some of these things and then they'll want to hopefully keep it in balance, but it probably depends because if all your friends are just on it constantly, there's a big draw there of not wanting to be left out and all that. But what I'm putting forth in my book is the idea really of pulling away from that and getting in touch with yourself and with, like I say, this greater connection
Mhm.
that's available. And I think, I think it's just time for those ideas. I think those ideas are really timely because they're really needed now. We need to know, like, well, what more is there? What
Right.
more is there and how okay, then what should we be doing? And one of the things I talk about in my book is the idea of flow. And I think a lot of books now are talking about flow. I think it's like an idea that's really kind of peaking, but the book about flow by I can actually say his name, Muheli Csikszentmihalyi. He's a Hungarian
Duh.
American psychologist. Yeah, and he wrote this book in 1980 called Flow: The
Ah,
Psychology of Experience. So he was looking at what was optimal experience that he was finding a lot of athletes and certain professions like surgeons or even like carpenters would get into this state or and with the athletes kind of rock climbers, dancers, they get into this state of kind of being in the zone where anyway, and so he talks about how even back in his book in the 80s, he talks about how teens, when they're just listening to music, watching TV, doing all these media things, they're escaping from the self, and what they need
mhm.
to do is strengthen the self. And in his opinion, the experience of flow, of being so absorbed in a challenge that uses skills that you're rising up to meet that challenge and you kind of get into this place of total absorption where you've lost the boundaries of your body, you've lost a sense of time and space. That experience, that flow experience, which can happen through many, many things, not just the things that I've mentioned so far, that is the experience that leads to happiness. And the more we can organize our day, and he says teenagers need to be doing this, back in the 80s, he says. And I think teenagers should be looking for flow experiences now. Like, what are those things that bring you into that state and to be doing as much of those things as possible, like throughout their week, throughout their day, as a substitute for your phone,
Yeah.
for
Well, and I think that's the
all the
key is, well, for one, I guess if I were to take a step back, I would say having parents who are doing this work on themselves is important. I know that's been the hugest part of this side of my parenting journey is that I've been doing this work on myself for a couple years, and it definitely informs how I approach conversations with my kids. But I think it's different when you're walking the talk and you approach those conversations from this deep love that you have for yourself, that you're sharing this information. But I also think the reason that I said that is because I look for ways to engage that way with myself. It's not a natural instinct for me. I don't know that it's going to become that. I wonder sometimes, like, is it going to be more second nature to be in joy, or am I always gonna have to remember, like, "Oh, I have to be intentional about that," you know? But, like, I just started hand knitting the big blankets, you know? I found a bunch of people on TikTok that were doing it, and I was like, "That looks like something I could do." I just started it last night, and I was like, "This is such a perfect thing for my daughter to get into too," because there's frustration, there's accomplishment, but it's pretty low stakes. But I think if you teach them how to navigate kind of intentionally engaging in those activities, it's a lot easier for them to understand, like, this is the feeling I'm after right here, and I can get that really easily with small mundane things.
Yes, and I think you make a good point. You're already doing it, they can do it with you. I think that's the parent yeah, it's you can't just say, "Oh, do this," although you can hand them a book, like my book, The Oneness Guide for Today, a book of insight for young women, or another book for teens. I gave my daughter a couple books for Christmas, and she's reading them, that are kind of self-help books for teens.
Yeah.
Anyway, that can be good, but, even reading those a little bit together.
Yeah, I was gonna say, reading the books together. Yours sounds like one that's great for moms and daughters to read together.
Actually, it is, absolutely. A lot of reviews that I'm getting on the book say that the that they're for anyone. They're for boys, they're for older women. I mean, and I find the same when I read a book for teens. I usually learn a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, God, so much of the work on ourselves is that inner teen anyway. Like how much of our stuff got stuck there. I mean, I know that's where my perfectionism started to bud. I'm only just now becoming like more acutely aware in the last couple of years, but specifically the last 6 months, where you think you've like understood where your perfection wound was and kind how to navigate that, and then all of a sudden, I'm upset about something, and then by the time I unravel it to the end, I'm like, "Oh, I was upset because I wasn't perfect again. God, all that energy wasted when I could have just been like, and this is a human thing, and it's okay that you did that."
Yeah, yeah, and you feel like that started when you were a teen? That
I
really
mean, I
it's
think that's when it really exploded in my life. Yeah, I do. Because, I mean, that's when you well, first of all, I was raised with somebody with tons of narcissistic traits. But I think for myself, that's when I was given the slightest bit of autonomy, but then if I made a decision, most often it was met with criticism. So, like, anytime I was given an opportunity to decide something for myself, it was never the right decision. I mean, and I was a good kid. So it was like it was pretty, like, very narcissistic, truly. But, yeah, but I think that most parents parent from a place of their own fear and their own shame until they figure that out for themselves and stop doing that. So even if you didn't have a hypercritical caregiver, likely you were criticized at really pivotal moments that could have used more delicate support, I would say.
Yeah. I think so often it's as parents, those things are coming from fear, and so
Mhm.
as parents, we have to find our own way to calm our own fears and put things in perspective. It really is constant work on
It
ourselves
is.
so that we
It is.
parent better and
Yes.
help them because we just yeah, you want I think I find that I want her to be able to check the boxes of society sometimes, because you're going to school, you gotta do the things that they want you to do at school, and at the same time, I know that I'm so against that, against living
Right.
in for checking the boxes,
Yes. It's a
you know?
delicate balance because it's hard to even identify some of those narratives sometimes and even like where is this coming from? But I think so much of it truly does stem from like the fact that most of us until we learn better view this child as a direct extension and reflection of us. And we have all this stuff we have to figure out about ourselves. So I know for me, for years, so much of the decisions I made was like, people will judge me for that? And I would
Yeah.
never make a decision for that reason now, but boy, it was the center of my decision making in terms of parenting for a lot of years because I've been a
Yeah.
parent for 23 years. So I so many regrets. So many. I mean, that poor oldest child, you want to talk about perfectionism. He's still battling that, and unfortunately, you can't just explain and then them go, "Oh, okay." It's like there's these hard-fought battles that you have to go through to finally get that understanding, but it's something that I'm watching him go through, and I'm like, "I wish I could fix that for you."
I know, and I think they pick up things that we're not even fully you know, they can just absorb it is
Yeah.
what I've heard. They absorb it even if you're not doing or saying anything, so it is
Yes.
tough.
Well, because they go I mean, this is the most elementary explanation of this, but as I've started to learn how our subconscious just takes in all the time, I believe that when they were little, they're like, there's this feeling and I don't know why. So I'm going to believe my little filter says it's because of this. And then their programming that you never intended. I mean, how many
Right.
times do they blame themselves for? You hear this children of divorced parents, they blame themselves almost every time, even when you tell
Yeah.
them, I promise it's
Yeah.
not your fault. But it's
Right.
just that
Right.
rejection and abandonment. And of course, I'm going to take that personally because, it was me that it happened to. And so now I create this inner world around these external experiences. I can see where I did it, so I think that really helps
Mhm.
me to try to understand where they are, but again, me understanding, I'm just trying my best to model at this point because the words don't help. I'm learning whatever I say is not what they're going to pick up on. So I'm
Oh.
just like, I'm finding ways to say my internal process out loud. And I do find that when you do it in more of like a, from a different perspective, kind of like, not like I'm teaching you anything, I'm just thinking out loud, they do absorb that. So I've been very intentional about that.
That is awesome. I love that. I love that you're so conscious of the journey you're on and, trying to model and just demonstrate to them like what's healthy. That's amazing. I mean, it's great for yourself and then it's so great for them and creates such ripple effects. So
Okay,
that's
so I
awesome.
have a question. It might be a
Yeah.
weird one. So you got inspired for this book when your daughter was 4. Were you going through like some sort of inner transformation?
Yeah, yeah. I was having a really rough time at that point. And I found some solutions that then I wanted to share. And it wasn't like completely new to me. Yes. So going back a little more, I my little journey was that I had grown up really being such a good girl, checking all the boxes. I
Mhm.
And I was kind of trained to be this little robot who did everything right, kind of, I
Yeah.
think you can relate to that,
Yeah.
who was seeking status and thought that that was really important because my parents thought that was important.
Yeah.
And so, even when it came to kind of in high school wanting to get all the accolades and be thought of in this, important way, and then
Yeah.
picking a college with a good reputation and that was so important to me. Like, oh, I got to go to the best college in my state. And then I'm going to be in a sorority because my dad had been in a fraternity anyway. And
Mhm.
then getting into leadership positions. And I just thought that everything I was supposed to do and of course, getting the good grades and everything, but just trying to kind of fit a mold or, check the boxes of what's considered respectable and successful in the eyes of the world. But that all ended up backfiring. I mean, in the end of college, things weren't working out for me. I did this leadership position that I wasn't good at. It and I
Which is the
felt
worst thing for a perfectionism. Like, not being good at something is god awful.
Yes, and we had this I was on this, like, I was on an inner sorority board, and then we got a new advisor, and it was a real high pressure it was a very high pressure I had to lead these big meetings during rush week, and it was just I was just crumbling under the pressure, and there was this new advisor, and she thought I was doing a terrible job, so I was being disapproved of by her. I
Mm.
also was experiencing some romantic rejections or just kinda getting ghosted in a couple situations, and I just couldn't handle it. It was like, I just felt like I was just crumbling, and also the end of college was coming, and I really didn't know at all what I was gonna do. I mean, I did not know anything about myself, and this was the problem. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to create a life. And I was just following the kind of this little dot to dot puzzle of the school system that's been laid out in front of me, but now there were no dots for me to connect to. It was all up to me.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it was terrifying, and I really had this huge, like, kind of existential life crisis at that point. It was like, for one thing, I felt like I failed at trying to
Yeah.
check the boxes of society, and then I also didn't know how I would create if I wasn't gonna meet all the if I wasn't gonna, like, get my MRS degree and get married at the end of college, and if I wasn't going to be this crazy successful, I don't know what I thought, leader in what was I? Or I was majoring in journalism, so I knew I liked to write, but I didn't wanna be a journalist. Anyway, I kind of like it was like stepping off a cliff, and it was really
Yes.
and I and then so that was my kinda opening to my inner life for the first time. Like, I didn't know anything about my emotions, at all, which is crazy. I had lived as a robot. And so now it's like, feelings? What are those? And, kinda like intuition, I started learning about. I found a book about it and just, kind of like spirituality. Never, I mean, I grew up Catholic, but this was kind of a different, kind of like more new
Yeah.
agey. My sister handed me kind of this more new thought, new agey book, and I went on Buddhist meditation retreat. So I kind of
Oh
really
my gosh, how cool.
yeah, yeah, she was living up in Montreal, she invited me to live with her, I went on, like, 2 10-day meditation retreats, and so yeah, and kinda started eating vegetarian and was doing all this new cool stuff, but kind of learning about different ways to live, I guess, and trying to find who I was, and and especially following my intuition became a really important part of my path, and then so through that, I found, things that were right for me. I kinda ended up in a job that was writing plus natural health, and those were really interests and really well, anyway, I'll go back to values. I wanna talk at some point about values, like knowing your values, and that's become something
Yeah.
I really think is I mean, values kinda sound, like, boring and stodgy, but I've realized, no, they're like your inner true self, and they can be your part of your compass for life, and I think health and wellness had always been something that I'd been interested in since I was young, and so, anyway, I found a job that kind of aligned more with my true self, and then, found kinda like, oh, the condo and the cars and all the good things that worked out really well because I was using my intuition, and then decades later, I found my husband, kind of these healers who led me to my husband, who was my soulmate, and then we had a child, and so then fast forward to when she's 4, and was I was at that point in my late 40s, so I was, um, having so I was a much older mom, and she was 4, and I was just starting to have the stress and strain of parenting, and I had some kinda underlying health issues, but at this point, for some reason, I was just my health really spiraled down, and I was to this point where I could barely hold myself up on my legs, and so
Mm.
it was, like, so scary because I was like, "What's gonna happen to me as a parent to my daughter if I can't, like, walk around?" I mean, it was, like, one of the most terrifying times in my life,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I found this book by, this author. I just found out about this author. Her name is Florence Scovel Shinn, and she was, like, a metaphysical writer and speaker and everything in the early to mid 1900s, and
Oh.
yeah, so there was this time at the turn of the century, oh my gosh, well, the early 1900s, sometimes I'm like, "Which century is that?" Um,
Yeah, yeah.
20th century, who were just really dialed in. That was when, like, the birth of quantum physics was happening, and there were a lot of really, really astute thinkers about the metaphysical principles in the world, and when I found her book and I ordered her collected works, and she was talking about just everything I needed to hear. She talks about how she has a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It, and she talks about how she starts off her book saying, "People think life is a struggle, but life is a game, but you need to know how to play the game by knowing basically the laws of the universe."
Yeah.
There's the law of attraction, the law of non-resistance, the law of forgiveness, all, of course, there's anyway, more laws, but so what she talked about was a couple things that were really important to me and that I started following. I started putting them into practice. She talks about, of course, visualizing. So, because she says visualization is the scissors of the mind, and eventually the things that you're cutting with your images are going to appear in your outer worlds. I
Mm.
started visualizing myself, like, walking strong and healthy, um, and I just felt like I really believed and felt those visualizations I was doing, so that I thought was really helpful, and then she also talks about, and I can quote from her book, she says that, "I was feeling resentment toward certain people in my life at the time, well, one person in particular, and she says, "Anger, resentment, ill will, jealousy, and revenge rob man of his happiness and bring sickness, failure, and poverty in their wake."
Yeah.
And then she says, on the flip side, goodwill produces a great aura of protection around the one who sends it. And so I was really like, oh, yeah, I need to, there was someone and it was kind of eating me like every day. I was feeling, I didn't feel like they were supporting my parenting, the way I was doing things. And I was
Mhm.
feeling this constant, I felt victimized by them. But that was this negativity I was carrying every day. So
Yeah.
started doing these forgiveness exercises where I would picture them, I'm sending them every good thing they want and I'm seeing them receive it. And I'm seeing how, as they receive that, well, they would never even do the things they were doing if they could receive all that. And if they
Right.
could get that appreciation and love, and so it started to, it kinda makes you see, well, they're just like me. They want the same things I want. They wanna be loved, they wanna be appreciated, they wanna feel like they matter. So, and if they could do better, they would, and I just kinda had all these great epiphanies by doing these visualizations, and I it did shift my relationship with that person. I was able to start approaching them differently, and I felt that I was kind of taking the lead in helping that relationship to improve, but not because I wasn't carrying all the negativity toward them, but not just that, but I really did feel that I started to feel lighter overall, and I started to feel healthier overall. And then so the forgiveness part, I put into practice the manifestation with the visualizing, and then also she talks about following those leads and hunches given to you by the universe.
Mhm.
So the intuition basically, and I made an appointment with a health practitioner, and the morning of that appointment, and I'm sitting there drying my hair. I'm like sitting and drying my hair because I couldn't stand very well.
Yes.
Just got this little download, like, this is the first day of the rest of your life. Like, it was like I don't know, it was just a sense. I just felt it.
Yeah, yeah.
Day of the rest of your life. And so and I went to that practitioner, so that was kind of an intuitive thing, and she did prescribe some things that were really helpful. Basically, my health dramatically improved, and
Mm, good.
and I've never gone back to any, like, crazy scary situation like that since, and at the time, I felt like, and I did feel a sense of urgency, especially in the depths of the struggle. I just thought, "I want to share with my daughter these ideas because they're so important to know that you can manifest, that you have intuition, that," and it's all based on this connection with, with kind of this greater energy of the universe or whatever you wanna call it. There's guidance out there, and our minds are really powerful because what we picture and what we believe will then become, to a large extent, what we experience. And my daughter to know about a lot of these ideas, and the foundation of a lot of these ideas is the idea of an interconnected universe. I kept writing about that in the book, so I kind of started writing it, and I kept saying, well, because we live in an interconnected universe, what you're thinking about others affects yourself, or you know what you're wishing for others affects yourself, or
Mhm.
and so I realized, well, I need to do a oneness chapter too. So in the book, I talk about, well, is oneness real? Are we interconnected? Like, who says, or why?
Yeah.
And so I put in the science. I started looking into the quantum physics, and I put that into the book. I wanted to share with this generation that we really do live in an interconnected universe. It's not just like a cute idea. Oh, it's not just
Right.
fun, fuzzy, idea. There is evidence in the world of science that had the quantum physicists at the time, or physicists, I should say, saying, quantum physics thus reveals a basic oneness of the universe. Like, this was Erwin Schrödinger, who's a major, well-known physicist, said that. And anyway, so I put those quotes in the book too, and I explain the different discoveries in that field that point toward oneness. And I also wanted to talk about how spiritual traditions for thousands of years have, almost universally talked about oneness, and especially all the Eastern religions.
Yes, those Eastern folk got it right.
Right? Me
Gosh. No,
Yes.
yeah, and the oneness thing for me, it took a little bit to get there, but because I was still very much looking at things like me versus you.
Yeah.
But the day that I was like, I do that too, actually. Like, and when I recognized that, then I was like, why do I do it? Okay, then that's the same reason. What need am I trying to get filled? That's the same reason they're doing it. And then it was one of those epiphanies that changes this entire being because it was like, oh, and then it was such a kumbaya feeling. It really was because I was like, we really are all connected. And I was just like picturing us all holding hands. And I was like, oh, but we really are. And I'm very human, so there's times when it takes me a minute to get through the hurdles of my feelings,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, life does get better for you when you understand it's not me versus you, any part of this experience. It really is, I am you and you are me, and I can learn from you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that you're putting that into practice because it's easy to separate the concepts from how you're viewing your life or how you're operating in the world. And I know for me, I have to stop and just almost like picture that interconnectedness, picture that we're all really connected somehow and that they're me, like you said, that they're me and I'm then there there really isn't, to say like they're bad, I'm good isn't really real.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's hard and you have to keep going back to it.
Yeah, I mean, especially I think it's one of the pivotal key lessons that we're supposed to experience, and
Ugh, I
so the
agree.
layers of learning this is wild, and
Yes.
so my current approach to it is curiosity. I'm not always hitting the mark there, but if I find that I'm in that agitated, tense energy about a relationship, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, I don't want to feel this." So that's
Exactly.
my key motivator for going, why would a person do that though? And you already know the answer. But sometimes I want to be angry or tense for a minute because I'm allowed to if
Right.
I want to. But when I decide this is not in my best interest anymore, so let's
Right.
look at this differently. And I think that's really all we can ask of ourselves is to pause at some point, whenever that is, and say, how can I view this differently? And how can I see myself in this person? And every single time I like actually visualize myself as them and go, why do I do that? Wow, they are very hurt in this area. And that makes perfect
Yes.
sense to me. And I can make that about me if I want to. And you know what? It is about me when they act like assholes to me because of their own wounds and they're not aware of it. But my response is about me too. I never even have to tell them any of the stuff that I'm doing inside of myself to understand them. But I can know that I'm making an active choice to live the life in the energy that I'm choosing.
Absolutely, and I think that does on some level affect the relationship and send something positive to them as
I
well,
agree.
but also the next part is you get to navigate from a place of love for yourself,
Yes.
do what you need to do.
Yes. And that is so important to make decisions and to live life from a place of love and compassion for yourself. And I think that's the reason we have to learn this is because you can't give anyone else love, compassion, grace, understanding to any level higher than you're willing to give that to yourself.
Yes. And to just forgive and to just send the goodwill toward them, but not to take care of yourself because they might continue to mistreat you. No, there's still that
Right.
aspect of needing
Right.
to be respectful toward yourself and that you might still have to take an action that they might not
Right.
even look that you've
Well, I
taken.
mean, the boundaries have to be, I will do what's best for me for sure. And listen, people who are codependent and enmeshed do not like boundaries and they feel abandoned when you place them, and you will suffer their
True.
wrath every single time. And so, how can I approach what's best for me, but with love? And I just think, like, I was talking to a client one day about breaking up with someone, and I'm like, there's two ways you can approach that though internally, where it's like, go, block, da da da. You're like, you're out. You did this, so no. Or I send you off in love and in peace
Mhm.
to have whatever beautiful experience you're meant to have. But I can say that experience is not meant to be had with me. And I love myself more than any relationship. So I'm approaching this from that. And I'm like, feel the difference. Just get into the energy of both. Yeah, totally. And and I think that it was such an epiphany for me because I always say I operated truly from a place of spite my whole life. I made all the right decisions for all the wrong reasons, very similar to how you were describing the way you checked off the boxes. Outwardly, I was hitting the marks, not like totally on time, but considering my childhood, I was doing really well and I was the golden child and the superstar of any
Yes, me
system I
too.
became a part of. Yeah, I totally resonated with what you were saying there. But truly, I was proving people wrong in my head too, because when you grow up in a foster system, you're presented with a lot of statistics about what you're likely to become. And I was like, nope, 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 nope. But I had no idea what I knew I wanted to help people. So I've always been really firm on that mission, but I didn't know how to help myself at all. And man, you saying you didn't know how to feel, ooh, I was a robot too. You wouldn't have known it because I'm constantly caregiving and not even good at it, really, if I think back to how I treated people. But yeah, so when I got to that place where I was like, I only want to do things because it feels yummy, like because it's what lights my soul on fire. That's
Yeah.
love. And I want to forgive myself every time I'm an actual human because I'm allowed to be a human. And birthing from that place every new day is the most bizarre paradigm shift because man, you're just not stuck in this world of resentment and anger and bitterness and tension.
Amazing, amazing, and, like, living from such a healthy place of love and support for yourself instead of, "I have to do this and be this so that I can prove something or be,
Yeah.
somebody that people think, 'Oh, look, she's cool, she's
Yes.
doing it.'" Y Yeah, like, for me, where I have gotten to lately is that nothing needs to happen in particular in my life for my life to be good. So that's another one.
Yeah.
Surrender, and I talk about that in my book too, that there's this whole idea that we have a divine design and that there's kind of already a plan in certain ways and that we're co-creating with a benevolent universe that also wants what's best for oh no, I'm losing the thread. I'm going off topic and I'm losing the thread.
It's
But
okay.
no, I've got it. But that we oops, am I gonna lose it again? But at the same time, we can surrender it. We can let go, and we can know that really, kinda live in this Eckhart Tolle way of being in the now, that the
Yeah.
now is where your life is. It's not when you accomplish this thing or when
Mhm.
you check this box or hit this next milestone. It's the now moment and, like, being present for that and enjoying the life of today, like, truly being in it instead of always this striving that I think we can get caught up in and thinking our life will be good when. And,
Yeah.
in the psychology, I don't know what if you know about, like, the positive psychology research, they talk about the hedonic treadmill or sometimes hedonic adaptation means that we adapt to whatever our goal we meet a goal, then we kind of take it for granted, and that becomes our new
Yeah.
norm. And then there's always the next thing, and so then we're on this hedonic treadmill, always kinda thinking in the future is happiness, and I feel like I'm finally getting it where, like, I have to surrender everything I want and know that it doesn't maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, and it's okay either way. How do you like that?
Yeah. I wonder what your thoughts are on this too, because this is kind of my constant push and pull is like, I do believe you gotta have some sort of plan, right? Like, so I, at first, 2 years ago or whenever, was like, business plan. I'm now an entrepreneur, like I've left a full-time job and whatever. Business plan, learned very quickly. That went to shit really fast. Like, first month, I was like, "Okay, okay, I hear you. Not so
Okay.
much on the details, not so much on the details." So maybe don't include so many numbers in that plan. But where I've
Mm.
kind of gotten to as I've learned to follow my intuition and, even just the idea of like if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I'm still working on that because I'm burned by the maybe all the time. And like I'm still learning to go with the hell yes or say no because the maybe gets me every time. It's a lesson that I'm just repeating really beautifully. But I'm trying to like just more have like a general idea of a plan, but being flexible enough to go, that's not working. Or, ooh, let's transform this part of the plan into this. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like that's a surrender or, I'm literally just asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and it's something I wonder about too, because I was taking this class the other day, and it's by someone who's pretty woo, and then at the end of the class, she talks about how you've gotta have a plan, and I was really surprised that she was so big on the plan and
Right.
breaking it down into steps and all this stuff, and to be totally honest, like, I don't believe in it.
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't believe in it. I believe in being guided.
Okay. Yeah.
I do. I believe that I mean, I think it's for one thing, ideally, your goals come totally from within, from some kind of intuitive hit or guidance, and
Hmm.
I think even if we don't know it, it usually is that or often is that unless we're trying to check other people's boxes or
Right.
do a should. So hopefully that's not it. Hopefully it's truly coming from inside. And then as far as the steps to get there, I think it's a good question. I tend to think that you will be guided there. Kind of, I'm all about like the Tao, be in the Tao, and the
Yeah.
Taoism thing where let yourself be moved.
Yeah. I love that.
Because I just think the mind doesn't know. I think there's just a greater wisdom that knows so much more than we ever can. And it's about being receptive to that and letting ourselves be moved and guided as we're going toward it. And it might end up looking so different than our little mental faculties could ever figure out or imagine or plan. And so, I don't want to say I'm totally against plans, but maybe I am.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. Like, because, well, listen, the more I plan, the less works. You know what I mean? But I mean, I think for me, it's like, all right, these are the things that I'm really enjoying. So this is what I want to pursue. So
Mhm.
I do. And then how do I feel? Like pursuing that. Okay, let's back it up on this area or go forward more in this one. And then some days I just want to knit, you know? So I do that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think that it's kind of back to the Taoism idea. There's a rhythm to the universe and I think that forcing doesn't get you there. And I think we're taught to force things and to always be constantly striving and
Yeah.
working hard. But that is not necessarily the way that the best success is going to happen for us or the most rewarding outcome is gonna happen, and so I think it's really important when you have a day when you're just not in it, like, don't do it. Like, just step back
Yes.
and, like, knit and rest and, like, just chill, do something fun, like, I don't know, I think that it's really important to follow I don't know, follow more of an authentic flow that's going on rather than pushing and pushing. And, I know some people who teach manifestations say that it's actually more in the resting and the
Yeah.
is when a lot of times the magic really happens.
Rest and joy is what I was kinda hearing and what I was feeling intuitively, so I'm like, "Okay, that's another thing to listen to, like, am I feeling joy?" And if not, even if it's listen, there are parts even to putting out a podcast that I'm in love
Yes.
with that don't bring me
Yes.
joy.
Right.
Now, most of them really don't reduce my joy at all, but, like, there's stuff I don't wanna do at the moment or whatever. But that's when I go, "How can I go get into that energy, though? Can I knit? Can I go on a walk? Can I just get some sun on my face?" And I've been very intentional about that. Not as good as I could be, but, like, I'm working towards being in that energy more often. Like, truly having these conversations is
Yeah.
so big for me. It's, like, a really big part of what lights me up. But, I mean, honestly, if I could only do this for an income, that would be a dream come true because it makes me so happy, and I do believe in the impact that it's having, you know? But
Yes.
also, what is my personal joy? What is my family joy? And really just trying to spread that around, but I think the more in you're in that energy and also intentional rest, not in a place where necessarily like if you're finding maybe you're just at this chemical low that you're having trouble getting out of, and so you're sleeping more than what's normal or whatever, don't ignore that. But for me, yeah, the more I take care of this vessel and just go, I'm needing some rest. Like, I just don't feel up to that, the better things work out for me.
I agree. Yeah. I think you make a really good point that you're not going to love every step of the journey to get somewhere. And if you only do what's really fun, you might have a harder time accomplishing your goals. And so I love your idea of just shifting your energy so that you can just maybe view it more positively or be in a more open and welcoming space toward these things that are kind of the have to do's, because
Yeah,
even teens, we're talking about teens, like I'm saying, oh, get these flow moments into your life. That's really good. But there's the have to do's. There's a lot of have to do's as well. And so, I like your idea of how do you shift? How do you do something fun before you have to do your homework? Or
right,
what's the reward? Or it's not really true that you only do what you're intuitively guided to do because we all have these obligations, but maybe there's a way to approach them. That's what
yes.
you're saying.
Improve your energy because approaching a task hungry, tired, agitated is
Yeah.
going to feel totally different than approaching a task right after you had the time of your life, you know?
And yeah, and you're gonna do a better job of it. I think, like, when it comes to writing, a lot of people sorry, I'm kinda jumping to it, but just an example, like, people say, "Oh, you have to write every day." And I mean,
Right.
any, like, rule like that, you should be skeptical of.
Yeah,
And I just don't agree with that at all. Like, don't force yourself to write every day. You're not gonna I don't agree with it, but, I mean, other people do.
right.
But, I mean, how about what could you be doing with that time that genuinely feels right, that's gonna help your next day's writing be that much better?
Right.
That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
energetics, just the cycle of energetics is a real big focus for me because we do have chemical highs and we have chemical lows. And when we learn how to manufacture the high ourselves, you can get into any energy you want, anytime you want. But so if this task is feeling like the most mundane, weighted task ever, go ahead and get yourself in an elevated energy to be able to approach the task. Once I learned how to start doing that, I'm not like perfect at it, but once I learned how to do that, boy, I mean, I'm approaching all tasks with just more fun, like I'm editing or, oh, I'm whatever. And then boom, it's done instead of this is taking forever because I'm at a place, I make sure I'm eating, there's just that
Yeah.
holistic approach to everything. And yeah, I think teens of all people, I'm still teaching my 23-year-old this, like, energetics matter. So if you're just sitting here, he really labels himself as procrastinator. And I was just telling him yesterday, like, that's a very unkind label to give
Mm.
yourself. And so when you learn this is just a chemical response and you can go do something that gives you the energy to get into the work that you need to do, it will get so much better instead of sitting around dreading the task all day, lowering and lowering and lowering your energy, your vibrations. Who's going to be able to accomplish something? By the end of the day, you fucking hate yourself because you didn't do it this morning, you know?
Well, that's wonderful to give people a way to break through that cycle of procrastination. Like that's brilliant. Like I just feel like you have so many good things to share with teens,
Oh, thank
with every age. That's awesome. I'm learning
you.
learning from you.
I love to learn from everyone I come in contact with, so I'm
Yes.
glad to hear that you're approaching conversations like that too, because, I mean, I don't know, you know, the oneness, it's so I feel so much connection to people, and so, yeah, I love to learn from others and share what I'm learning in real time. That kinda seems to be my deal, is I'm learning all this stuff and then putting it out for others.
Yes.
But
Yes. That is your thing. That I feel it. Yes.
thank you. Well, I have loved having you. This was really good. Before we go, of course, I'll include your stuff in the show notes in terms of how to find you, but go ahead and say out
Mm.
loud too, in case people don't like going to the show
Say
notes.
it out
Where
loud.
we can
Yeah.
find you.
So I'm at faithspencer.com, so that's easy. At Faith Spencer Author on Instagram is another way. And those are really the main ways. At my website, you can get, if you sign up, well, there's free meditations is one thing.
Ooh, I
And
love
then
that.
some of them kind of little oneness meditation. So if you're kind of like, how do I get into a state of oneness? You can go to my website and you'll find these meditations that can kind of bring you into this expanded state of like opening your boundaries of like the separation between you and others. And it's a very good feeling. So my book walks you through that. The free meditations can walk you through that. And if you sign up for my email newsletter, you will receive we'll send you little affirmation cards and you'll put your address
Aw.
in there. If you put your address in there, and then also I have this little PDF that you can receive called 12 Tips for Being Unconditionally Happy. And we didn't really talk about it, but I have this certification, Happy for No Reason certification. And it's kind of all about, but it's a lot. It's some of the stuff we talked about today, like just ways to shift yourself from within instead of looking to the externals to make you happy.
Yes, I love that. Well, you have some really great resources. Again, I'll make sure I include your links in the show notes. But thank you. And ever if should find yourself in like needing to collaborate with someone, happy to collaborate in any way that ever I could. So keep that in mind. But thank you. I have loved this conversation so, so much.
Me too. I love it. I love how you're vibing with the oneness thing. That's so awesome to hear. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to press stop if you'll hang out for 1 sec.
Hey, make sure you've given the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to if you haven't already. And check out my website, empoweredwithmelissahepner.org, or my link tree on Instagram at melissa.hepner to check out my latest offers or workshops. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.